Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Next Left Turn. I'm Josh Edwards. This is Variety Sports Network. And oh my Lord, everything we've been waiting for all year for short track racing. All the fireworks you could imagine. Guys, if you missed it, I'm sorry. I'm going to spoil everything. But it was fantastic. The ending was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was awesome. It was old school NASCAR and it was fantastic. But we'll get to that before we end the show. Let's get started tonight. Boys, the all-star race down there in North Wilkesboro. Classic track. They finally came back to it last year. But this year was a little bit different. We had different sets of tires we could use. We had a new surface that had been repaved for this track. And a lot of the speculation was that was going to make this a one-lane track because it usually takes a few races to build up the other lanes. But they used some innovative surfacing technology to make sure that the track held all of its original bumps, and the drivers said it was fantastic. The qualifying was awesome. I got to watch that where they included the pit stop and the pit crews made a difference. It was the whole weekend was really, really, really awesome, with the exception of the 4 inches of rain that fell in 2 hours, flooded the track, and ended up postponing the truck race and then canceling the heat races for the NASCAR crews. But, man, was this race something to be seen and beheld. Well, it was a lot of fun. I mean, the race itself was pretty solid. It was a lot of strategy. Joey Logano jumped out to the lead right off the bat and really never surrendered it. Fords looked good. Toyotas looked good. Chevys looked good. Kyle Larson went and qualified fifth at the Indianapolis 500, flew his happy butt all the way over to North Wilkesboro and ended up having to start in the back of the field, finishes fourth. This race had a lot of excitement. It wasn't necessarily in the terms of who was up front and lead changes, but it was everything else that was going on in the field with only 20 cars in the race for this short track. It was awesome. It was like an old school race that I got to grow up on. Part of what I loved loved about NASCAR when I was a kid. And man, if we had more of this, NASCAR would have way more fans watching week in and week out. But let's get to it. So they dropped the green flag on this race. And if you didn't know, there was going to be a mandatory stop halfway through the race. And then there was going to be an optional stop with about 50 laps left. On the first mandatory stop, you had to change 4 sets of tires. Either you had to take the soft compound that was at the red letters that you saw on the cars, or you could be on the normal tires that have the yellow letters. They also had rain tires ready in case there was going to be rain. The rain all came yesterday. Didn't have to worry about that. So green flag drops. Joey Logano, right off the bat, his car was fast. He was fast in qualifying. He takes the lead. Kyle Busch gets squeezed and pinched into the wall a little bit. This is very controversial, and we'll get to the back of this at the end of the race. But on lap 2, we get our first caution. Kyle Busch takes out Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's retaliating for what he feels was let's call it a not clean pass. I've watched the replay probably 15 times now. It looked good to me. Kyle Busch kind of slid up the track a little bit. The door opened to go inside and make it 3 wide. Stenhouse Jr. took it and got by him. He was clearly in front of him. On the next lap, Kyle Busch comes up right behind him, bumps him once, bumps him twice, puts him up into the wall. Again, this isn't a points race by any means, but it is for $1 million. And we know how these exhibition races are. Things get hot quick, very quick. And it took 2 laps tonight. Very unfortunate for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's had a pretty good season. He's been very consistent. But, yeah, he was out early. And in his interview after the accident, at the end he said he was hoping that Richard would maybe hold his watch. That was kind of a little foreshadowing for what nobody really expected to happen at the end of the race. But when you come out and you make a statement like that, you kind of got to follow through or you're going to look bad the whole rest of the way. So after we get through the caution cleanup, Joey Logano clears turn 1 and he's gone. His car was a rocket ship all night. He ran the red tires all night, and the red tires were that softer compound that gave you more grip early in the run, but they were supposed to wear out and make it a little more difficult for you at the end of the run. And they were projected to go somewhere between 65 and 75 laps on those tires. Well, Joey Logano has a nice, comfortable lead the entire first 100 laps. At one point, he's got a second lead over Buescher, and Buescher was strong. He had a great race. But William, I mean, we're getting up there, we're about lap 70, and William Byron tags the wall, and he ends up breaking a pin in the right rear, and he's got to go to pit road. No caution there. He makes it down to pit road, and he's done at that point. I mean, he finishes the race. He goes 14 laps down for the repairs, and he does get to finish the race. But at this time, we get a few more laps going, and Joey Logano at this point is working his way through lap traffic. There's not a lot of it. There was, like I said, there was only 20 cars in this race, so it took quite a bit of time for them to get all the way around the track, especially considering there was a caution on lap 2, but there was no other cautions until the caution lap 100, which again was just a competition caution for that mandatory tire change. But right before that lap 100 mark, Joey Logano is still working his way through traffic, and he gets up to Bubba Wallace. And Bubba Wallace does an excellent job of holding Logano off to stay on the lead lap. If he would have gone a lap down, he probably would have had the lucky dog anyways at the caution and gotten back on the lead lap. But he showed some great skill, and he was very clean in that effort, and he held Logano off to the end of the stage. We'll call it a stage. We didn't have stages tonight, but we had the mandatory caution. So we'll call it the end of the stage. That's the halfway point. Everybody goes to the pits, and at this point, it's strategy. A lot of the broadcast crew was definitely talking about how the cars that stayed on those red tires, because everybody started on the soft compound. I should have said that earlier. My apologies. And then on that lap 2 caution, almost the entire field, I think 16 cars came in or 14 cars came in, and they all switched to the normal primary harder compound tires. And the conversation was that this was going to come back and bite those cars that stayed out and stayed on those red tires. What I guess was forgotten in that conversation was that Joey Logano got to do some of the testing at North Wilkesboro on those tires. So he had a little bit more of an advantage just from the experience side of what those tires would do. Now, in practice, he did run 63 laps on those things straight, and that gave him a good read on what he could and couldn't do and how his car would handle. But those were during the day. So during the night when the track got cooler, you'd assume, like most of us would, that you get more traction and those tires would last a little longer. That was a gamble they were willing to make, and it worked to get to that 100 lap mark. And when everybody pitted again, it was kind of a suspicion that those cars that took the red tires up front may take the yellow tires, but no, they did not. Joey and Penske, Ryan Blaney, and a few others said, we already ran the red tires for 100 laps. We can run them for another 100. That's true, but if there was that other caution with 50 laps left, if you didn't have those red, softer compound tires, you weren't going to have that initial grip. And it really took about 60 laps for the yellow tires to match the red tires in pace. So it was a gamble, but they took those red, softer compound tires and they made it work for them. They were fast. They got out to a little bit of a lead. There was quite a bit of jostling right off the bat, though. Denny Hamlin got up there, and he was working Joey Logano. And this was after Bell got loose and Bell fell back. But Hamlin, again, doing what he does. He manages tires, he manages races, and he stays in it. That's why he's won so many races. That's why he is so widely despised by so many race fans, because he very often beats your favorite driver, as he likes to say. So, at this point, again, Bell's running really well, but he gets loose. Something goes wrong with his car, and he just starts falling back. Keselowski was up there for the longest time. Buescher was up there. Blaney, who started in the very back because of the qualifying penalties, he got 2 10-second penalties in the qualifying for being too fast to pit road, I think it was, and then he clipped the marker for committing to pit road. So he ended up getting 20 seconds of penalties, but he stayed out on that first caution, and that served him well. And it made the Penske cars run together, which was obviously part of the strategy for this. But again, this was not a points race. It was a money race. So at the end of the day, even if Ryan Blaney would have been sitting behind Joey Logano, would he have had the guts to wreck his teammate and tear up his owner's car to pass for the win? And anytime you're in short track racing and you give somebody a bump, that's always a possibility. It's just as much of a possibility as it is on super speedway. But on the track like North Wilkesboro, all you need is a little bump to loosen things up, and you're in the wall. So that was something we were also waiting to see. But with all this being said, Logano finally clears Hamlin, and he starts making his way out. And then we get a little bit more excitement. And it's Kyle Busch involved again. This time he spins out Kyle Busch. And this one was, in my opinion, a little bit less egregious than the first one. And I waited to show you the clips of them because I wanted you guys to see them back to back because Kyle Busch was involved in both. So I'm going to get this up here in just a second. We're going to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about in the sense of Kyle Busch causing the accidents, because I always talk about how I miss him being the bad guy, and Denny Hamlin is kind of taking that over. Well, I think Rowdy's ready to be rowdy again, because tonight he was definitely in that mode of, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to win the game or win the race. And I got no problem with that, especially in a money race. No problem at all. Let me get this up here. We're going to put this up. Here we go. And let's just check this clip out.
And the All-Star race is underway.
Sorry about that, guy. His first lap. And pay attention right here.
Oh, we got one in the wall right off the bat.
Busch.
Stenhouse cuts that hole and gets through.
For Stenhouse, he's not going to be happy about that. Stenhouse going for more.
Yeah, he's been 3 wide already.
Cowboy up. It's time to go.
Here comes
$1 million
Kyle
on the
doing
line.
what Kyle
There's not
does.
a lot of time, but Kyle Busch will pay
One,
you back, and here it
two.
comes.
Oh, boy.
Down sideways.
He's
He's
in
in
the
the
wall.
fence. He's done.
Kapow.
Didn't like that.
At that point, it's over for Stenhouse. You can't repair that. You can't keep racing that kind of car. Here's the clip of them being in car together on this one. Like I said, I didn't show you guys these earlier because I wanted to kind of put them all together and make sure we were seeing everything. So on the bottom in this clip, you're going to see Ricky Stenhouse's point of view. And on the top, you're going to see Kyle Busch. Here we go. So you'll see here, Stenhouse never touches Busch. Busch claimed that Stenhouse put him in the wall. Maybe right there they collided, but that's 3 wide race in a short track. Here we see Busch get close. Nothing yet. One and two, and there we go. Up and in the wall. Race over for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Definitely a moment. We see that in short track racing. That's why we love short track racing. It makes things more interesting and more fun. Do you think I could take Kyle Busch in a fight? So this is Logan Stone. If you guys watch Variety Sports, you know he was one of the original guys with me on 7th Inning Stretch and Cardinals Chronicles, Birds of Busch. And he wants to know if I think he can take Kyle Busch in a fight. He thinks he could take him. Logan, we'll get to that here in a little bit. Probably. With the way Kyle reacted after the race, I would say most of us could probably take Kyle Busch in a fight. Now, keep in mind he is an athlete, so he's probably in pretty good shape, but he's getting a little older. So then we fast forward to the second accident that Kyle Busch is involved in, and he takes Gibbs out. And I never saw, because I was watching the race live, I never saw a cutback where Gibbs did anything to Busch, but this one definitely is a little bit, I mean, not as egregious, but this is short track racing, and considering Busch had already wrecked one guy, this was a little suspicious. So you see, he gives a little bump.
Yeah, well,
he suspends him.
yeah, the 8 just barely touched him in the back right there. But going into turn 1, we talk about it. It's downhill. That section is really, really flat.
Yeah, he got him loose there, and then he finished him off, unfortunately, the second.
Again, 2 bumps and go. That was kind of Kyle Busch's move tonight. It was, if I can't get you out of the way with the first one, I'm going to finish you on the second one. Is Rowdy back? Do we have our original villain back in racing? I say original. He's not the original, but you know, in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, he was everybody's villain. He was the heel, as they say in WWE. And tonight he looked like he did in his old form. I love it. Again, not a fan of Kyle Busch myself, but I love the excitement he brings to racing. If Denny Hamlin's going to be the heel, then that's the kind of racing he needs to bring and be like that a little more often. I think the hate and the disrespect he receives off the track would be a little bit more warranted, outside of the fact that he's just a really great racer. But all right, so that was a recap. I wanted to give you guys all that together. At this point, we get another restart, and it's Hamlin and Logano, and Kyle Larson is now in the mix. He's worked his way all the way up. it's like, oh my God, is Hendricks going to do it again? That's the only thing I was thinking. I was like, just get out there. Hendricks battle Hamlin long enough so Logano can get a little bit of a gap, and we don't have to see Hendricks in the winning circle again. And if Kyle would have won this race, we'd give him all the credit in the world after everything he did earlier in the day, and then getting all the way out to North Wilkesboro to compete in this race. Again, he didn't get any practice, so he didn't get to drive on the new surface. He didn't get to try out the new softer tires. He literally had to learn this track in the time from the original green flag drop. So kudos to Kyle Larson on a fantastic race he had tonight. He really showed why he is one of the best drivers, not just in NASCAR and in the world. He did just set a record in Indianapolis today for the fastest rookie qualifying time ever. Again, that's a 4-lap average there. That's not just 1 lap around the track. It's a 4-lap average to qualify for the Indy 500, if you guys didn't know. Side note, if you don't know much about IndyCar and you've never watched the 500, if you don't watch the 500 this year, next Sunday night, we're going to be covering the Indy 500, and then next Monday we'll be covering the Coca-Cola 600, just so you know. So if you get on to next Sunday night and we're talking IndyCar and not NASCAR, don't tune out. Stay in. I'll educate you a little bit. We'll give you the breakdown of the Indy 500 race, and you join me Monday night next week, and we'll break down the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte. But I digress. So at this point, Logano's out there. He's going. Hamlin's out there. Larson's pushing, and he gets past Busher, and you think at this point he's got new tires. He's fresh. He's ready to go. He's going to catch him because Logano's got 50 plus 60 laps on his red tires that are only supposed to last 65. Is the gap big enough? Well, Larson and Busher battle for so long for third place that Logano gets to sneak away. And then Hamlin, for some odd reason, can't keep up like he normally does. It just wasn't working for him. And, I mean, Larson starts to fade. He probably burned his tires up because he didn't know how to run them as well because he didn't get any of the practice on them. But you could see that Logano, as he got to about a 1-second lead, he started easing up on those tires in case somebody was going to make it to him. And I'm assuming he was thinking Larson, in case Larson caught up, that he'd be able to still run at the end of the race. And he didn't even need to. He ended up winning by almost a half second. And Joey Logano gets the $1 million. Now, that's a great thing for Joey Logano. He hasn't won in quite some time. Yeah, it was an exhibition race, but it's $1 million. I mean, if you're not going to get the points, you might as well take $1 million home with you. And it's fantastic. Penske had a great day. They got all 3 spots at Indy 500 for the front row. Penske's NASCAR driver, Joey Logano, finishes first here. Ryan Blaney ends up 5th, so two top 5 finishers in the NASCAR All-Star race. That's a good showing for Roger Penske. And it was a fantastic day. It really was a good race. If you watched it, you understand what I'm saying because you got to see all the other battles. This track was 3 and 4 wide at times today with a new surface. It was very, very interesting to watch. It was different than what I was expecting. I expected 2 wide racing. I didn't expect many lead changes, but this race was fun. And if you got to watch the whole race, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, I encourage you to go back and try to watch it on FS1 later this week because I know they'll show it again. It was a good race. It was a quick race. It was like an hour and 40 minutes, so it doesn't take too much of your time. Even cut the commercials out, it goes even quicker. But let's get through that finishing order. It was Joey Logano getting the win for the $1 million, Denny Hamlin in second, Chris Busher in third, Kyle Larson, again, finished 4th after qualifying in Indianapolis and flying out to North Wilkesboro. Ryan Blaney, like I mentioned, got 5th. Bubba Wallace came in 6th after almost getting lapped in the first 100 laps. Ross Chastain, Watermelon Man, who is quickly becoming one of my favorite drivers. I've been on his bandwagon for a couple of years now, but he's fun. His crew is fun. His team is fun. He's enjoyable to watch. He's calmed down a little bit. He's not as wild and reckless as he was in the past, but he is very quickly climbing my ladder of favorite guys to watch in racing. Chase Elliott got 8th. Michael McDowell finished 9th. Kyle Busch, even with all the action he was in, finished 10th. Noah Gragson finished 11th. He was the fan vote in for the race. He didn't qualify by winning in the Open or getting first or second in the Open, but he did get voted in by the fans. Martin Truex Jr. finished 12th. Ty Gibbs, 13th. Tyler Reddick, 14th. Daniel Suarez, 15th. Brad Keselowski, who was up front for much of the race, fell off at the end and finished 16th. Christopher Bell finished 17th. AJ Allmendinger, 18th. William Byron, again, he had that little collision with the wall, and he got quite a number of laps down, finished 19th. And then Ricky Stenhouse Jr. didn't even make it to 3 laps. So that was the finishing order. those were the race highlights. Now, let's get down to the real fireworks that happened at the end. So when Stenhouse got taken out of the race by Kyle Busch early on, he got interviewed by, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I do greatly apologize. Jamie Little, I believe. And at the end of the interview, he said, maybe Richard won't mind holding my watch. He makes that comment, and of course, I'm like, he can't get out of there yet because the race is on, because there is no tunnel to get out from underneath the track. There's no tower or a bridge to go over the track there. You got to stay there until the race is over, because you got to go across the track to get out, I guess. And I was thinking to myself, man, are we going to have some fireworks? Are we going to get some old school action after the race? And Stenhouse didn't disappoint. He is literally standing at Kyle Busch's hauler when Kyle Busch is walking back to his trailer, and a fight breaks out. There's a little bit of conversation. It's not like Stenhouse Jr. just walked up to him and just gave him an old left hook. There's a conversation first. And I can't play all the audio because, well, let's just say I don't know who all's watching, and I try to keep this as family-friendly as possible. So I'll kind of give you the breakdown. Busch walks up, and Stenhouse walks right up to him, and it's basically, man, what was that? You wrecked me. And Busch is like, no, man, we were all banging together. That's short track racing. And Stenhouse Jr. is like, I never touched you once. Go back and watch the replay. Busch calls his bluff. And then Stenhouse Jr. says, go watch it, and just brings a right cross. Now, at first, when I first saw the clip, I didn't even think he landed. I saw a couple other clips. He landed. It was a good punch. It knocked Kyle back quite a bit. Stenhouse Jr.'s dad got in on the fight. Stenhouse Jr.'s crew was in on the fight. Busch's crew was in on the fight. I'm going to give you a couple different looks. I am going to keep the audio off again. I try to keep this as family-friendly as possible. But let me get these up here. I'm going to give you a couple different angles just so you guys can see it. You guys can try to read their lips, and I got no problem with that. So let me get this one prepped and ready for you. And this is pretty quick. So this first clip is going to it misses the conversation beforehand. You're pretty much just going to get the impact. So
battle them off, and when there's $1 million on the line, I think all the rules go out the window of clean. So I knew that was coming. I was trying to maintain that clean air. If I lost,
so you see Kyle's over the tires. Stenhouse gets tackled.
Man, feels good.
And he says, "Get my dad."
Congratulations, Joey.
Obviously, he doesn't want his dad into the middle of the fight.
Fight going on right now between Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
And you can see here from away, they are
number 2.
They're going at it. I mean, these guys are pushing each other.
And now
this is a good old-fashioned post-race fight. It was beautiful. It was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. If you didn't get to see it live, that's a shame. Go back and find it. It's all over X and Facebook and everything else right now. I'm going to give you this clip of it too. Again, like I said, I'm going to try to keep the audio off this one because I'm pretty sure you can hear quite a bit of the conversation. This is from over the shoulder, so you can see a little bit more of the punch land here. And then there's a couple other punches thrown. Kyle Busch ends up getting a left in on Ricky Stenhouse Sr. So, again, I'm not playing the audio because you can hear it, but boom, there's the hit. After he says go and watch it, everybody collides, and it's on like Donkey Kong, ladies and gentlemen. And that's Stenhouse's dad right there in the gray. Obviously, Kyle doesn't know who it is and knocks his glasses off. And Stenhouse is actually in the audio. He's telling Kyle to stop, to hold on, stop, don't do it. And Kyle still punches him because he doesn't know what's going on. As you can see, it was an all-out brawl. It was fun. I mean, this is what short track racing always was back in the day when I was growing up, when it was Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon's early days, Rusty Wallace, Terry Labonte, Ricky Rudd, the old school guys. And I'm sure it was like that back when the King was racing. But we had some action tonight. It was a lot of fun. The fight was, I mean, it wasn't the best fight any of us have ever seen. It's the best fight we've seen since Noah Gragson punched, who'd he punch a couple years back and got him into a little bit of trouble. It was a good fight. Nonetheless, it was fun. This is obviously going to set up some drama for the rest of the year. Next week at Charlotte, it's 600 miles. It's a long race. Guys get irritated in that race too. It's a mile and a half. The 7th gen car has been fantastic on mile and a half tracks. It's basically the only the only tracks that the 7th gen car has been great on. But after the fight, Stenhouse even came back. Jamie Little caught up to him again. They talked a little bit more. And Stenhouse basically said, Kyle's been talking trash ever since I accidentally put him in the wall back in Daytona a couple years back. And he makes the comment, basically he says that Busch is kind of just whining a lot nowadays because he's not as good as he used to be. Oh, here we go. So Fat Boy Fadeaway says, forget the family. No, I will send you the clip directly, good sir. And then we love to see it. Yes. And then who is my favorite driver ever? Oh, Fat Boy Fadeaway. That's got to be Rusty Wallace because that was my dad's guy, and that's who I grew up rooting for. And I mean, that's the hat here. That's not no Bubba Wallace. That's Rusty Wallace, Miller Lite, Miller Genuine Draft. You guys see that a lot when I'm in here. But definitely Rusty Wallace. I'm typically a Penske guy. I've always been a Penske guy. I root for Penske in IRL. I root for Penske in the IMSA races. I root for Penske in NASCAR. Penske doesn't have anybody in the minor leagues right now. So I'm a Penske guy. So whoever drives for Penske, that's who I root for. So I used to be a Keselowski fan too when he used to drive for Penske. So that's who my favorite driver ever is. So yes, I root for Logano, Blaney, and Cindric. But Ross Chastain is definitely up there on my list. And I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. just earned a place in my heart because I like a guy who's going to go out there and make a comment like he made and then back it up. Because that's the best thing you can have is a man who is true to his word. And he wanted to know if Richard was going to hold his watch. Richard didn't show up, and he still made sure somebody needed to hold his watch. But anyways, back to that. He said that he basically had nothing else to say about Kyle Busch and that they'd always race cleanly coming up through the minors. And he said that was basically it. He did make the comment that he would be happy to fight Kyle in a charity event for a NASCAR charity foundation, which I don't think after seeing that Kyle would want any part of that because I think Ricky would handle him without any issue at all. Again, that was kind of the big part of the race. It was 200 laps. It was done in about an hour and 40 minutes. We had lots of new stuff with the new paving on the racetrack. We had the new tire option. I think it was great. It added a little bit of strategy. Didn't seem to play that much of a role in the race, but it made you think about it. And it was fun. It was a fun race. It was a fun all-star race. I think the all-star race should always be short tracks. I think they should rotate them through. Throw Bristol in there every once in a while. That would make 3 trips in Bristol every year, though. Do the all-star rate on dirt at Bristol. There you go. Bring back the dirt race. I loved it. But no, it was a fun race. It was a great time. Good, quick race. Next week, we got the long one. The 600 miles at Charlotte. The Coca-Cola 600 under the lights. Like I said, guys, we're going to be covering the Indy 500 next Sunday night. Please tune in for that. I'm going to have a special guest on, somebody who has never watched IndyCar. He's going to watch the race for the first time. He's going to jump on with me, kind of give me his reactions and probably ask a few questions. Believe it or not, I know a little bit more about IndyCar than I do NASCAR because I grew up in Indianapolis and I've probably been to a dozen 500s. And yes, I always sat in the infield, and the snake pit's a blast when you're young, but the older you get, you don't want to be there. But no, please, again, thanks everybody for coming on tonight. I appreciate all of you hanging out with me every Sunday night and learning about these new NASCARs and enjoying the sport and developing knowledge and love for it. Please make sure you tell your friends and family who don't watch NASCAR that they should watch this one. It'll spark their interest. Next week, join me for Indy 500 on Sunday night. We're going to do Coca-Cola 600 coverage on Monday night. It's going to be a blast. You guys, thanks so much. I hope you all have a fantastic week, a safe week, and we'll see you guys Memorial Day weekend.